2026 sees me travel the length and breadth of England to run a marathon per week in each of its 39 historic counties. Why? To raise funds for Tommy's, the charity that does incredible work to try to end the heartbreak of baby loss. I'll be joined each week by someone who has their own story of loss, their own rollercoaster journey, their own reason to be there. This podcast shares those stories in the hope that they can bring awareness to an often undiscussed topic and even, perhaps, a flicker of light in someone's darkness. You can follow the runs, the stories, and donate to the cause at marathonsformiracles.com. Enjoy.
I've got to try and remember how I said it now, don't I?
Oh, by the way.
By the way, Ollie, I forgot to say. I was really blown away by Amy and how amazing she is when I saw you guys on the Devon leg. Yeah, I don't think I really had thought about the fact that you've got a tiny boy, a little boy and your little girl. And I ran up to the lifeboat station and I just saw her sat breastfeeding on the bench. She had the like makeshift flag with the Marathons for Miracle t-shirt, and I was just totally blown away by her, because how amazing to find. It's really hard having a newborn. Really, really hard. You are not sleeping, and for her to find the time to do, she does the social media and stuff, doesn't she? And to be able to support you. I thought, wow, it's the hottest day of the year, and she's got 2 kids going to different places, and she just looks like, I don't know, she just didn't look stressed. Like, it was just all in her stride, and I thought
That's
she was
really
amazing.
kind. She will love that, and it is fully deserved. There's been no end of times. I say no end of times. There have been a number of times when we've sort of had finished these recordings and people have said to me, "Oh, what you're doing is fantastic," and blah blah blah. And I try to put it across as much as I can, but I can't stress enough that it's not a one person effort. This thing, it's very much a team effort. Whether that be like directly working on the challenge, like as you say, like social media and the just general communication, which I'm not very good at, or the fact that I have to be away for a day on a Saturday of a weekend and she's got 2 young kids to look after. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think she's an absolute superstar and I love her to bits. And it's very much a team effort. So yeah, I might even cut this in at like the start of the episode so that even if people don't listen to the whole thing, they'll get this up at the top.
Amy's got her shout out that she deserves.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks very much. That's really kind. Hello. Welcome to week 25 of Marathons for Miracles. The number gets bigger every week, which is encouraging for my legs. This week we are still in the Southwest. We've got 2 more weeks in the Southwest before we tick off that region for good. Or not for good, I'll probably go back at some point, but not to run a marathon, hopefully. Somerset, we're in Cheddar Gorge for our sins this weekend, and we'll learn a lot more about that later. But this week, slightly different episode to others because we're joined by, firstly, 2 people, which is a bonus, Jess and Laura, and they are both student midwives still, just
nearly midwives. We'll go with nearly midwives.
Nearly midwives. So similar to Alex, who you might remember we had on way back in January, they're just going to the end of their midwifery qualifications. So a really interesting perspective as ever on the fertility journey and the highs and the lows, and both parents themselves as well. So another to look at it from. So hello, Jess, and hello, Laura, and thank you very much for being part of the challenge and being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Not at all. So we've sort of almost covered it off in the intro, but what is it? I guess slightly different question to normal. I guess give us a little intro of yourselves. What led you to wanting to become a midwife, I guess, because I think you've both done other things previously and sort of then come to being midwives. And then what led you to us and this madness on Sunday? Who wants to go first?
Shall I go first? Because I think it's my fault that you're involved, Laura.
Yes, actually, is to go first.
So I am Jess. I live in Devon. I've got 2 kids. I wanted to be a midwife after I gave birth to my daughter. Had a really, really positive experience. The midwives were amazing. Had the birth that I wanted, and then sort of didn't do anything to train because I always thought I'd probably have more children. Thought that would be really complicated to train as a midwife. And then my son was born a few years later, and I had a traumatic birth with him, unfortunately, and it was quite a difficult journey afterwards. But it reinforced my desire to want to be a midwife, because actually the midwives around me were amazing at the time, and they really, what's the word, made a bad experience better. It's probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, they were absolutely amazing, and I still want to be a midwife even though this bad thing has happened. And when I started my training when my son was 1.5, so he was still quite little, so that was quite difficult, juggling all of it.
So you were right originally. The training with
Yeah.
little kids was, yeah.
Yeah. So he's 4 now. I'm nearly done with my training. And then I'm sure, I don't know when I started following James, who did Devon Leg. And then I saw that James was doing this with you. I think that's the way around. I saw it, a Weather Marathons for Miracles just popped up on Instagram. And then I think I messaged you or I signed up to it, and then I put it on my story. And then that's when Laura was dragged in as well.
So I'm Laura. I'm based in Somerset, originally from the northeast. So I was quite interested to see your run around Durham. You ran up to Pension Monument, and that literally looks over my old house. So
Oh, really?
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So opposite Pension Monument, there is a country park.
Yeah.
And that used to be the mining, like the pit. And so I lived kind of on the other side of that many years ago. Yeah.
Oh, I wish I'd known. I
So
didn't plot that route. Tom plotted that route, so you've got Tom to thank for that particular bit. I went to uni in Durham and sort of know bits of the area around it reasonably well, but bit of local knowledge. There you go.
Long time since I lived there, but so I have a background in graphic design. I used to work for quite a well-known cosmetics company on the high street that smells very strong. Generally, people know what that is. I've travelled a lot with my husband, who's in the Marines, and had children. So with my first, again, I had a positive experience, but I was 23 and I felt like I was a lot younger at the time, and I felt like I was told what to do. There was no choice. I was just did a lot of nodding and agreeing without asking too many questions, because that's what I thought you did. You listened to medical professionals. And so, yeah, after that, although it was positive, I didn't feel like I had a lot of control over it, and it could have gone better. So with our second, about 1.5 years later, I planned a home birth, and I laid down every rule and want, and it was lovely. So I had our second not too far from where Jess lives now, because we were in Exmouth for that one. So I often drive past that house and tell her, "Oh, you were born in that dining room." But again, similar to Jess, the kids were young. We were moving around a lot with the forces. Then we lived in Rotterdam, and I thought it's starting to be time for myself now. So I had to do an access course to do some more studying, because there'd been a gap since my degree.
Yeah.
And then ended up at Plymouth University.
So you two studied midwifery together at Plymouth?
Yeah.
We both do a blended course.
Okay.
So we're not actually rarely at Plymouth. Kind of, we do everything online. I think a few blended courses came off the back of COVID. But it makes it much more accessible for the likes of parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's much more flexible. Yeah.
And I guess particularly with something like midwifery, I'm sure there's quite a large amount of theory around it, but I feel like it's one of those jobs that you learn to do it.
But we're always attached to a midwife as such on every shift. And then as you go through the degree,
with a string, so you don't get lost.
Yeah. Even hold them to the toilet.
It does lengthen that string.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does,
I always say it's like a
yeah.
like a retractable dog lead. Like they will
Yeah.
drag you in if they need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and Laura are now nearly been
Nearly
that
off that
free,
lead.
haven't we? We're nearly off the lead.
So what have you got left to do? Have you got any sort of exams or stuff, or is that all done and dusted? I seem to remember when we were planning June we are now. I seem to remember part of the thinking was that the uni
everything.
stuff would all be done. So you've got a bit more placement left to do, or are you pretty much?
Yeah, we've still got to be in placement until I think mid-August,
Yeah, mid-August.
around that. We're just waiting for results now. We've got an
Yeah.
exam result and dissertation.
Obviously, given what we speak about a lot on this podcast and what this whole challenge is about, I really take my hat off to you because we like midwives. Midwives are the good people.
Nice to hear.
Yeah, no, well done to both of you, and particularly sort of transitioning from other walks of life into midwifery. I find it incredibly admirable. So thank you and well done. And that's the end of the podcast. That's all.
Yay for us.
Yeah.
Me and Laura have both got our 40 births. I feel like I remember you talking to
Oh yeah, have you got little
we've got our little feet. I haven't
yeah.
got mine at hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I wish every profession had an equivalent, but I guess
Yeah.
what makes it special. So you've done, is the placement left now, is that sort of, you have to do a certain number of hours, or is it there's other things that you still have to do before you can cut your string?
No,
It's a mixture, isn't it, really? It's we've got to do hours, we've got to do a certain number of births and examinations, but once you've achieved them, you still have to be in placement until the end of the course as such. So it's quite a good time to kind of consolidate any skills, or if you feel less confident in an area, you can request to kind of go back there and ask to look after some of the high risk things on labour ward. I think that's always useful while you're a student and have that solid support behind you.
Have that exposure to.
Yeah. And my thing this year was actually being part of bereavement care. I hadn't done anything of it in my first 2 years, and the midwife I'm assigned to at the moment does a lot of bereavement care. So I kind of had a conversation with her, like, if the opportunity is there for us to be able to support someone together, I would really value it whilst I'm a student, to be able to have, like that support person always there. Because it is different in lots of ways.
So have you now done some of that, or is
I have. Yeah, like obviously it's quite a limited amount that I've done, but I have.
But to even shadow those scenarios, I guess shadowing is it's a bit more difficult in those sorts of scenarios as well, isn't it? Because it's sort of they're difficult times for people, and it's sort of if we don't need to have another person in the room, why do? But I guess there's a lot of understanding around the fact that students are students and they need to learn somehow.
Yeah.
So how have you found that? Obviously
I have found it a massive privilege. I think it's the main take home from that. Like, it was really, really sad, and I was, it's upsetting, and it was devastating for the family. But when I reflected on it afterwards, I kind of thought how amazing it is to be a part of that moment with someone, to give them compassionate, dignified care, and also to give the baby dignified care. The people in that room will have been the only people to see that baby, and I thought that was a massive privilege with them. It did feel like a massive privilege. And I think when you're a student, I do think every morning when we go into labour ward, we get allocated someone. I think the coordinators do normally shy away from giving bereavement care women students because, like you said, is there a need for another person? But for the people who are happy to have students, it's important. Like James, for example, who did Devon, he had a student for, it's another person to care for you, I guess, isn't it? Obviously not everyone feels that way, but it can be another person to care for you.
Yeah.
I think it's always a valid point to make. We often, regardless of the care to provide, we always ask if everyone's happy to have a student. And I think when people hear students, they expect this group of...
You expect the American TV programs where there's 19 doctors
standing around the
about.
edge of the bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like that at all for a student. I always try to frame it as it's another staff member to help provide care.
Yeah.
We're not here to just, stand and observe. We are providing the care as well.
Yeah. I mean, even after a year of training, you've got a year more training than I did going into a delivery suite for our miscarriage, like or for Amy's first birth, whatever. Like you're light years ahead of Joe Public once you've done however long, aren't you? So it's no, absolutely. I can see the value in that. Do you? And I guess this goes to both of you. Jess, you've also mentioned you've had perhaps a taste for it already. Have you had any involvement with any bereavement stuff, Laura, in your?
Very similar to Jess. I didn't have any kind of exposure during first or second year. So I approached labour wards and it's not a very nice conversation. I didn't enjoy, going to labour ward and saying, anybody in the bereavement suite? Because again, I thought I really wanted to take that opportunity as a student to be supported myself, because I haven't experienced, so I didn't know how I would feel either. I felt like I needed support, but it was very important that I experienced it so that I can provide that care going forward. Again, it was very sad. On the flip side, it was somebody that I'd provided care for previously. And I'd seen in community. So when I knocked on the door and I said, "Is it okay?" and she recognized me, she said, "I'm so pleased it's you." So to have that, as soon as I saw her name on the board, and I said, I please, can I go in and provide that care? And I think I spent 2 days with her. So, yeah.
But having been there, I can see how that would be so special. I mean, with second, we had midwives all the way through, and then saw some of them at the hospital, which is just really nice. It's like, obviously that one was a positive experience, but it makes such a difference when you can they see you the whole way through your pregnancy, and then they come and do a home visit and they're like, "Oh, we get to meet him," sort of thing. Obviously in a bereavement scenario, you're still meeting the baby, but it's under very different circumstances. But I can see how a familiar face would have been really, really valuable at that time. And actually we were fortunate that we had the same midwife basically for 2 days as well. So I'm sure she did go home at some point. I don't really remember her leaving, but she seemed to be there the whole time. But she was incredible. Going back to what you said, Jess, about feeling really privileged to be there, I hope that most patients, if that's the right word, would sort of feel the same. I think the job that was done, certainly by Sarah, our midwife, in that situation was just unbelievably special. And with the sort of grace and humor as well, like at the right times, and just, we've got to get through this. Let's get through this. And let's do it in the best way we can, and let's do it in a dignified way. Like it's so special and it's so important. So the fact that you've both sort of been there and done it to an extent, and have, I assume, sadly, a lot more of that ahead of you is, it's quite an undertaking.
I think it's really hard. Like, I felt the same as Laura. You kind of, before doing it, I was really worried about how I would feel. And I was really worried about having a reaction to it, which would then feel like I'd centered myself in their care, if you see what I mean. And I was really worried that someone would look at me and feel like they need to comfort me, because it's not about me, it's about them. But one of the midwives at work, her son died when he was a baby, and I spoke to her about my worries, and she said actually when he died, there was a nurse who sat with her and cried with her, and that gave me like the reassurance that like having like human emotions to an experience which is devastating, people appreciate that it's not just like our day, a normal day of work, and we're cold and I'm sorry this happened, off you go, kind of thing. So yeah, that gave me reassurance that if I was upset with them, that would be okay, probably.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. And thinking back across all the conversations we've had, there are a number of instances that people have spoken about where they've perhaps not received the care that they might have hoped to. And that always tends to come from the moments where medical professionals have to be professional and have to be perhaps a little bit blunt about things and say it how it is, because you can't sugarcoat some of these things. Invariably, the moments that people will look back on and remember as being special and stand out are those human moments. The moment where someone almost, it feels like someone's just taken a minute out of their day to stop being busy and being a doctor or a nurse or a midwife or whatever it may be, to just stop and go, are you all right? And just have that human interaction. And I think that's where, and I guess that's almost part of the contrast between doctors and nurses or doctors and midwives, right? That's sort of the point, is that it's a bit more, there is a bit more of a, for the doctors, there's a bit more of a separation, because they need to look at the medical situation and make sure that the right thing is being done. Whereas the midwives and the nurses are more, you know, you're there to care. It's more of a caring role, isn't it? I guess. Is that fair? And Laura's going to disagree with me, which is great.
Yeah, a little bit. I think, we are. I saw something recently online about, it was something on social media saying that it was just a midwife was just there and they didn't ask her to help with CPR in a situation because she was just a midwife. And we are so highly trained to deal with so many obstetric emergencies. And I get what you're saying. I think doctors only have that clinical kind of picture.
Yeah.
They only see those emergencies where we can deal with them, but we also are there, I feel, to give that holistic all-round care.
Yes, that's a much better summary. I just delete my bit in the edit just for Laura's it, and then I'll agree with you. No, that's what I was trying to say. But it is really interesting to just, particularly at this stage in the challenge as well, we've got 24 conversations that we've had at this point. So pulling these themes out from the people who've been on the other side and hearing them from you guys, looking at it through a professional lens is really interesting. I asked Alex this about her training, and it'd just be interesting to see how sort of consistent it is. Because I know this is another thing that crops up a lot, is sort of how things differ from one place to the next. Outside of you, both of you having sort of actively sought to spend that time with the bereavement specialists within your hospitals, what sort of coverage does miscarriage, bereavement care, aftercare, Tommies maybe get within your course, within the work that you're doing, within your training in general?
In terms of like bereavement care, we had 2 study days, didn't we, in second year?
Yeah.
Second year. So the first day was like people who've experienced loss in some form coming to talk to us about their experiences. And then the second day was hands-on, doing things like practicing memory making. So we practiced things like foot molds, footprints. We looked through memory boxes because there's lots of different charities that offer different memory boxes. We talked a bit about different faiths and their different needs in terms of memories, and how, everyone has got different feelings about, I don't know, afterlife, or the way that they manage grief, or the way that they sort of deal with death, essentially. So I thought that was really valuable. Those were like main core teaching, but I think it just naturally like weaves through your years, because even if you haven't directly cared for someone, there's there will have been a time that you were on labour ward and there would have been someone in the bereavement room, and you would naturally speak about their experience, because the people who end up in that room for lots of different reasons. It kind of naturally comes in then. Me and Laura work in 2 different trusts, so every trust has got different things that they offer, but lots of the memory boxes are charity based. I think Abigail's Footsteps we have, and I think we've got, is it Abraham's Gift? Yeah, is Islam based. I think Tommy's, there's a lot, we have like loads of leaflets. Tommy's have loads of leaflets on sort of going home and support for going home, support during a miscarriage. What do you want to add, Laura?
So it doesn't sound like a long time, I guess, those 2 days out of a 3-year degree, those study days, but they were
Oh.
I mean, it was quite intense as well, those 2 days, but really valuable. I always remember we had a local charity to Plymouth come in, and they do a lot. Yeah, and she's she had a loss, and she's gone on to do so much. And she's so passionate about offering support, and that was quite nice to hear from her. We did photography as well.
Oh.
Um, just being mindful and offering that option, I guess,
Yeah.
to families. They might,
You say, sorry, go on.
as I said, some people don't always want to see baby
Oh.
straight away, but it's to have that option. We can always take the photographs and just say, look, they're there. If you
Yeah.
want them, you don't have to have them, but some people might reflect back in hours, days, weeks later and think, actually, I wish
Yeah.
I'd had something to keep. So it's nice to have
Yeah.
that option.
We nearly didn't see our baby, and then after getting discharged the next day, and we were like, it doesn't feel right somehow. So we did in the end. But it's it's so, we've again spoken to a lot of people about this, and it's all so personal. But you mentioned as well that like 2 days doesn't feel like much, but I guess that's 2 days specifically on bereavement and grief and handling the emotional side of that process. I get it. A lot of the rest of a experience of a miscarriage or a stillbirth, I guess, is very similar to an actual birth. Like Amy had to give birth. She was induced and she gave birth. So I guess a lot of the care is exactly the same or very similar from a successful birth to an unsuccessful one, or whatever the correct terminology is. But to have that specific focus on how to deal with the issues and the mental mess around those circumstances, I think must be really valuable.
Yeah,
Go on, Laura.
I think the biggest worry for me was that I was going to say something wrong. And those study days kind of helped reassure me a little bit with that. I just didn't ever want to say my foot in my mouth or say the wrong thing. And I think it's about being able to make those connections quite quickly with the women and the families that we care for. Kind of making sure that we can alter that communication to suit them. And it's quite a hard skill, but that is part of
100%.
midwifery. You need to be really quick to read the room and know what that person needs in that moment.
Yeah. You always got to know what's happening the second you open the door. There was a moment with our birth of our daughter, which was successful, and Amy had been induced overnight, and I think the midwives had literally just changed over, and the registrar who'd been on all night had sort of been in touch with what was going on, and we were getting closer and closer to being like, we need to have a C-section here. And it was literally like the midwife changed over, and 3 minutes later the reg walked through the door and was like, right, C-section, go, basically. And these midwives, I was like, they were fantastic, but I was like, it was 8 o'clock in the morning and they just started, and then suddenly bam, go. I was like, they were just they barely sat down in the room. It's like, so I know, regardless of the scenario, I guess you get it all the time where you've got to, you open a door and you're never quite 100% sure what's going to be on the other side, and you've got to sort of perceive everything that's happening and figure out, right, what do I need to do, where am I going to be useful, what's going on, which must be, it's just quite a skill.
Everyone likes to be communicated to in different ways as well. So I think like being able to read a room and really understand what someone needs from you, and you have to kind of learn to be adjust your personality to people sometimes as well. Like with some people, they want to be really quiet and you just like talk to them in hushed tones. Everything's really gentle. Then other people want like really up for a laugh. They want to laugh their way through labour, and you have to adjust your personality to be like all outgoing. And being able to read the room is quite a skill, isn't it?
Yeah, I can see that.
My children has just appeared. I just need to wait out my husband to deal with you.
Fine. I've got a question for Laura anyway. Okay. Spoke about the sort of the contrast between your first birth and your second birth, and how you felt very cajoled perhaps in the first one, and a lot more in control in the second one. What has that experience given you heading into a career as a midwife? Sort of people wanting to feel like they're in control of the situation. But I guess in the scenarios that we speak about a lot, where they're a bit more negative or can perhaps be slightly more emergency situations, you perhaps lean into listening to doing what you're told, I guess, a little bit more than perhaps you would otherwise. How do you reflect on that, your two experiences, and how you'd sort of take that into your career?
Yeah, so like I said, so for that first birth, I mean, nobody knows what's going on, do they, during that first pregnancy, or we just kind of, we get told things, and I felt just had to listen to everybody. As I said, everything went really well. I was induced,
Mm.
and I mean, I was induced and I had a baby 4 hours later. Everything was fine, but yeah, I felt very told what to do, and it's very stern, and just didn't feel like what I wanted. Just something didn't sit right with me, and I don't think I put my finger on it at the time. So when we decided to have another baby, we just moved to Exmouth. And I think I started to do some research. I think it was around the time of that whole one born every minute era as well. There was a lot of birth on TV. I used to watch it a lot. And then there was I think it was the time of Instagram started as well. And I started to follow birthy people on Instagram and go from there. So I did a lot of research. It probably wasn't that much evidence-based on reflection, but it was getting snippets from people and kind of putting things together of how I want to go forward. So I went into that pregnancy this is what I'd like. I want my wishes respected. I always remember I struggled to breastfeed my first, and I felt great sadness with it, but there wasn't support. There's a few comments like, you can't do that at that group, they'll kick you out. So I was very nervous. And I always remember in my second birth plan saying, I need support breastfeeding. There is no other way to feed this baby. If you don't support me, my baby will starve. I was very dramatic about it. But they sent support workers to my house afterwards to help.
Yeah.
So it really highlighted how important to have those connections. So I connected really well with my second midwife. I saw her throughout my pregnancy and postnatally. So you mentioned about that earlier as well, about having that familiar face. That's really important model for us, having that continuity of care. That continuity of care is evidence-based to improve outcomes for mum and babies. It reduces interventions. Yeah.
So do you think you now are a more consultative? Are there too many T's in there? I'm not sure. It's 8:00, nearly 9:00. A more consultative in your approach as a midwife, reflecting on your experiences yourself, trying to make sure that you're presenting every option and guiding rather than.
So our role is to provide all of the information, the pros and cons of everything, to ensure that people can make those informed decisions.
Yeah.
We don't even want to guide. We want to say, this is your option, this is your option. This is what's good about this. This is what's not so great about this. Here's the information. Well, where you come back and tell me what you would like to do.
I think that's power. I think that's what we've seen more of recently as well. I think it makes a big difference when, particularly, I do what I'm told, but for Amy to feel like she has really understood everything, and I'm joking, it is a team effort, but it's not my body at the end of the day, though. She's got to be comfortable with that decision. The last point, and I've made some very scathing comments in the past about home births, because my mum a long time ago because her birth with my older brother was so straightforward, it was suggested to her that she could have a home birth, and I ended up being a very emergency C-section and was like minutes away from not existent. So to my mind, that I don't remember that obviously, but that's the first tick in the box of home births are a bad idea. And then just again, I think because of our experience first time round of losing one, I just feel like for us, having the idea of going through latter stages of pregnancy or like a birth experience with minimal medical facilities on hand just felt like a ludicrous approach to me. But I think that's perhaps because I'm a bit more hardwired that way. Yeah, tell me I'm wrong again.
There's a really, really good study out called, is it the birthplace study? Is that the right name, Jess?
Birthplace study, yeah.
Yeah. And that tells us that somebody who has got a universal or low risk pregnancy, most of so for second time mums, the safest place is actually to give birth is at home. It's only slightly different for first time mums. There is a slight increased risk to baby. But again, the numbers are not huge or anything. But yeah, research tells us that the best place for low risk second time mums is to be at home, and that's safer for mum and baby.
Interesting. And that's because of sort of comfort, familiarity, low stress environment, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I mean the moment that you step foot through the door, there's that increased chance of intervention, and it's that cascade of events.
Fair enough. I was very pro intervention. It's like, if you need to intervene. Let's just get, I think, and I think that's an interest. It's good to have that. Again, this is where the research and the information that's available is really important, because I think for me, and I think Amy to an extent, perhaps less so, but my viewpoint became very much, if we start off without a baby and end up with one, the journey from A to B doesn't really matter. Like, we just need to, because obviously we start in the first instance, we started at A and never got to B. So it's like, as long as we end up at B, who cares how we've got there? But I guess having all of the this is where you've got to treat everyone on a case by case, I guess, aren't you? And make sure you're being informative and making sure that I get that message. That's really interesting.
I guess it's all about choice, isn't it? Everyone deserves their own choice, and yeah, it's a valid one. I also wanted a home birth, so maybe me and Laura are a bit biased.
Yeah.
Should we? I have one more question. You mentioned about the bereavement element of your training and the loss element of your training. There are statistics out around loss in pregnancy. You hear 1 in 4, you hear 1 in 3. From having spent now nearly 3 years in and around maternity wards, delivery suites, how aware are you on a day-to-day basis of babies being lost as well as babies being born? And just from what's your feel on those statistics based on what you actually see on a day-to-day basis? Does that feel about right, or are people overestimating it or underestimating it? What's your gut?
I feel like it's underestimated. Although we don't see early miscarriages, really, that's normally gynae or like an early pregnancy unit. I am one of few people that I know who've had babies who haven't had a miscarriage. So I feel like within the circle of people that I know, I'm like the minority rather than the majority. Most have had at least one early miscarriage. And it's not often, I think, that you don't see someone who, even if you're looking after them with a full-term pregnancy, who in their history has had a miscarriage. Yeah. Something about you, Laura?
Yeah, because initially I thought about more kind of losses later in pregnancy. I don't feel like because I don't have them often, I guess. I don't feel like there's always somebody in that bereavement room where I am. But again, similar to what Jess said, we've got a separate early pregnancy assessment unit.
Of course, because statistically beyond 12 weeks.
I think they are, is it 50? I think they are seen up until 15 plus 6 there.
Okay.
I have done a few days over there as part of the degree as well for that experience. But like Jess said, when you open up so everything's digital now, they're digital notes. they have a brief statement of their obstetric history. And often, it's very common to see the dates with miscarriage with it as well.
Yeah. And I said it was the last question, but I'll sneak an extra one in. We speak a lot on the podcast about there being two groups in society, those who have had miscarriages and those who haven't, and that their approach to subsequent pregnancies is very different. Is that markedly noticeable when you're dealing with someone, do you think? Is there an extra layer of stress and concern, or does it again really vary?
Do you mean like through their pregnancy? Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. I think everyone's so different, aren't they? Some people feel quite matter of fact about things. And
I think some people are quite closed about it as well. They don't.
Yeah. They feel like they don't want to talk about it. Yeah. And then some people carry, like, you might, so like we book people's pregnancies, which you might remember, Ollie. We have to ask about any pregnancy they've had, and that includes termination. And that might have been from when they were like 14 or 15. And people do like shy away from wanting to talk about it. Not that we would ever force someone to talk about it anyway. But yeah, they carry that sort of shame. But this is kind of like a side note in my brain, one of the greatest privileges I feel in what I've done is those births after losses, those rainbow babies. I just, some of my, I shouldn't say favourite births, but the ones that I've really will stay with me forever is such a massive privilege, are those ones who have their rainbow babies. And I looked after someone recently, we made a big thing about being a rainbow baby. We got a rainbow baby hat and we talked about their loss, and it was such a massive privilege, to be able to support them with that. And I feel there is a different layer to those births. All births are beautiful and magical, but there is something about a rainbow baby birth that feels a bit, I don't know, a bit different. I don't know how to describe it. Or it's just like there's this like energy in the room. I don't know how to describe it.
A healing process as well. I think it's kind of.
I think some people don't believe that they will have a live baby at the end until that baby's there and has cried. And it's not, it's quite often for a baby not to immediately cry when they're born. And there is this this anxious energy before they cry, and then of this like huge, massive relief once the baby does cry. Yeah.
I didn't think this was going to be one of the episodes where I cried, but you got me at the end. So then.
Nice one, Jess.
It's like that. Yeah, I don't know how to describe being part of like those rooms of people who've had pregnancy after losses. Just magical to be able to. And like, we're the people who first touched that baby. This is the other thing. I am like, not always, obviously, if people have a water birth, but my hands have physically brought this rainbow baby into the world. And that is just,
If there isn't normally enough pressure not to drop the baby, like, don't.
That one.
That was my biggest fear coming into this, was dropping a baby. And I've never ever dropped either of my children, but there's just this like irrational fear.
It's like when it's someone else's though. Does that ever go? Is that still there every single time to a certain extent?
Yeah, they're really slippery as well when these babies really come out. They're really slippery.
Yeah.
Oh dear. We've just had Rupert say we've very recently done the newborn phase, and within like a week and a half, I'd pass it to Amy like across the table with like one hand. When it's not yours and it's that small, you're like, no. So having to do that every day. Anyway, very much a tangent. Running. We're going running on Sunday. We're not just going running on Sunday. We're taking on. Well, who wants to talk us through the Cheddar Gorge Marathon? I feel like who read the race notes that came through today. Jess said that she'd been avoiding reading them.
I blocked it.
I did a little walk there the other week. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it was I don't think I saw them. I think I did a smaller route, but it was the description of hell steps.
Yeah.
That kind of got me.
Yeah. Well, I looked, that's quite like close to the start. So my worries was like, because it's a 2-lap course, we'd get to the second lap at the end as hill steps, and someone may have to be like carried physically up those steps. But I think it's like 2K in or something, isn't it? 3K in?
Yeah, we'll still
Had
have
a little
fresh
skim
legs.
over. So that I thought, oh great, that's a good.
Yeah. So it's Cheddar Gorge, and we I think we start in the gorge and we go up and out and along the top, and then back down and back up again, and then back down.
Yeah.
And that's 1 lap, and then we do it again.
And that's
Yeah.
So yeah, the girls have really taken on the challenge, and given, as we've discussed, that neither of you have had a loss or a need to use Tommies, you really have like thrown yourselves into it. So once again, the midwives are doing us proud. How's training been, Jess? You came and ran Devon. Sort of. Did you do a half in the end? You must have been close to doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a half. Yeah.
And we're flying along.
Well, I was at the back.
Yeah,
That's just that into context.
Fine. But at least you got your Devon leg. For those who remember, was the hot weekend. And what's the forecast, Laura, for this week? 27 currently.
Yeah.
So there we go, Jess. You got your.
And it's obviously there's no shelter. Once we're up on that ridge, there's not a lot of shelter. It's there.
I think I need to get a bucket hat. I think this is.
Yeah, I thought about like
a trilby,
rimmed hat. Yeah.
One of those Aussie bush hats with the corks on. I think this is the stage of the year where, if there was any fashion sense for the first half of the challenge, it goes firmly out the window in favour of keeping out the sun, staying alive. Let's just stay. No one die, please.
Yeah.
But no, so there was a bit of hot weather training for you there. And Laura, you both seem to have been doing loads. Actually, has it all been all right? Because there was an injury scare at one point, wasn't there?
That was me.
Playing basketball
Laura
or something?
smashing it. I just want to say. Oh no, that was Laura.
That was how I started this challenge. So last August, I had quite severe ligament damage in my ankle. I had a boot, and I was at home, and I felt like somebody should have probably taken the internet off of me at that point, because I signed up for a marathon and rescued a kitten. Kitten I was talking to earlier. Yeah, so I had to rehab my leg, my ankle, and then I started training in the new year, and I think I've calculated I've done about 480 miles of training.
That's.
My Garmin tells me I'm good.
I don't think I've done 480 miles yet this year. Maybe. Actually, I think the whole thing's 1,000. So if we're over halfway, we've done about, but that's a fair shift. So feeling ready?
My Garmin tells me I am.
Garmin on Friday told me that was detraining, and I nearly chucked it in the river ahead of. So don't believe everything that Garmin says, but if it's being positive, if it's being nice to you, it's definitely right, because it tends to err on the side of evil bastard. Certainly my Garmin does. So
yeah.
No, and time predictions. What do we think? Because this is no normal marathon. What is the elevation? I'm gonna see if I can find the route, but
300 and something.
300,
meters, isn't it?
No, it must be more.
Yeah, it is. Oh, do you reckon? Or maybe it might be
4,000 feet. This says, which is about which is about 1,300 meters, 1,400 meters.
Oh, it'll be fine.
So I think I've broken it down as we do have to do the first lap in 3 hours. That is the cutoff. But once we're out for the second lap,
take all day.
We're fine.
Yeah. It'll be starting. It's quite a late start, isn't it? It's like a 10 o'clock.
Yeah. It's 10, which I think is, you've got to get there an hour early, it said on the email as well. God. But it's quite late for it to be hot, was my thinking.
Yes.
But it'll be fun.
I've often started quite early for my past events. And they've often brought them. There was the year that I did my ultra, they started us early. Get us out early.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's not like a 7 o'clock start or something, but it's So you've done ultras before, Laura?
I did Racing
Oh yeah,
Stones, which is 100.
which is a similar
Yeah,
ordeal, isn't it? It's is that longest day?
yeah. It's the ridge.
Is that on the longest
Say
day?
again.
It's in the summer at some point, isn't it?
Oh,
I can't remember what the date was of that. Yeah, it was. It
Yeah.
was July. It was, and it's quite chalky. I remember. So I had to put sun cream like
Mm.
underneath because everything was reflecting out. So I could
Oh,
feel my chin
interesting.
burning and
They say that about
yeah.
people who climb Everest and go like Arctic trekking, is
Oh,
one of
really?
the worst injuries they get is sunburn on the roof of their mouth because they're sort of
Oh,
panting for air, but then are getting the reflection off the snow. Horrendous.
like
Anyway, I don't think we'll be quite that bad on
that's your next challenge, Ollie.
okay. And Jeff, is this your first taste of idiocy?
It is. Yeah, I ran regularly, but my normal distance is like every time I run, it's between 5 and 10K probably.
That's what I'm
So it
hoping
is
to get
quite
back to in like November,
yeah,
January. Yeah,
in
yeah,
the new
yeah.
year.
We're going to leave it till after Christmas. So what possessed you?
Yeah. I think midwifery makes you slightly unhinged when you train to do midwifery, and
do you agree with that?
you know, good cause. I ran a lot when my son was little because how do I describe it? I basically had
Mm.
PTSD, so I needed like an outlet. So I ran quite a lot when he was little, and I needed a space to just be mum. And that was a good time to like run and be by yourself and think about life. And I do that a lot now. Actually, I think about work and
Yeah.
things I've seen or and I kind of like debrief and reflect in my head as I
Mm.
run along. Well, I don't know if I will ever do a marathon again
I'll ask you on Monday.
after Sunday. We'll see. Maybe not Monday. Maybe not Monday. Maybe ask me a few weeks after. But
I've got
Have
one booked
you?
for
Are you
September. So.
where are you in September?
Yeah. It is
Oh,
Bristol
nice.
to Bath.
oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
internet should have been removed from me.
Oh dear. Taking away the fact that you've both clearly been training very hard and are in good shape for Sunday, I think, given
Yeah.
because if you're not watching the video version of this, there's a lot of face pulling going on. But I think just generally with your attitude, and I think the attitude of midwives in general, to sort of just crack on and get it done, I think we're going to be absolutely fine. I think it's going to be a great day out. I think it's going to be beautiful. I think it's going to be hard,
Mm.
but I think as long as we're not in a rush and it's just sort of get it done attitude rather than, as you said, I'm going to go and do Jess's 300-meter elevation course, and then maybe we might have a crack at a PB. Outside of that, I think it's time is out of the window, and it's just going to be a fantastic day out. Another county ticked off, and thank you both as well for your fundraising efforts as well. You both ticking along nicely. So I'm really looking forward to meeting you, Laura, and seeing you again, Jess. Thanks so much for your time this evening and for everything that you do in your job. I know you guys get paid for it, but it always feels like it's more than just a job, but what you guys and all other midwives do. And I'm very grateful to you for it. And I'm sure lots of others are. So thanks so much. And I look forward to seeing you both on Sunday.
Yeah.
See you soon.
Perfect.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.